Welcome to this week's edition of World Crisis Radio. This is Webster Tarpley here in Washington, D.C. Today we turn to the questions of mass struggle, the unfolding mass strike wave here in the United States, and above all, the urgent need to provide leadership, program, and organization to people now re-entering political activism after a prolonged period of disorientation, demoralization, and apathy, generally caused by the successful counterinsurgency, the Obama presidential campaign. Now, we have the Occupy Wall Street this week in the center of our attention, although, of course, there are events in other cities we'll be following. We get a report from D.C., we hope. We've had reports coming in from San Antonio, from Portland, Oregon, from Los Angeles, and elsewhere. There are some anti-Federal Reserve demonstrations in Texas. We have a few things to say about them. But let's look in particular at the Occupy Wall Street. Now, we are basically in sympathy with the idea of attacking Wall Street politically. The overriding goal is, of course, to break the power of finance capital. That means to break the power of Wall Street, to wage class war, indeed, to wage a class defense because it's strategically defensive. But if you want class war, you need a war plan. Wars are based on war plans. That means a program of concrete, specific demands that will express the interests of vast sectors of the American population. Indeed, a combination of demands that represent what is necessary to save this society from collapse in the current breakdown crisis. So if you want class war, you better formulate class-wide demands, and that can't be some silliness that you simply pull out of the air. Now, the question of whether there should be these demands or not is at the center of our discussion this week. We've had Sam Sater, a former broadcaster on the failed and bankrupt Air America network, who says that you don't need demands. As a matter of fact, Sam Sater thinks that the Occupy Wall Street movement should never have any demands. We've got an economist by the name of Wolf writing in The Guardian saying, well, there'll be time for demands. We don't need to have these demands. Mainly we should concentrate on growing. And then when you get down to the end, his proposal for a demand is, we can do better than capitalism. Now, this is a bloodless abstraction. This is not the problem that Americans and other working people around the world face. They don't need to ponder whether it's possible to reimagine society or do better than capitalism. Their problems are of quite a different order. How can you get a job? How can you visit a doctor if you need one? How can you stop a fraud closure on your house? How can you pay your exorbitant credit card bill? How can you get out from under student debt? How can you pay your tuition? These are the problems. Starting with these, we propose to show people that the main issue is we have a depression. Who should pay for the depression? Wall Street says the American working people should pay for the depression with austerity cuts, destroy Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, unemployment benefits, S-CHIP, Head Start, WIC, the entire social safety net, for the very young, for students, for families, for the elderly. We say no. We say Wall Street must pay for this crisis. And unfortunately, the libertarians often come into this game on the side of Wall Street. They say, yes, take down the social safety net, destroy the Roosevelt New Deal and the LBJ Great Society reforms. The libertarians play Wall Street's game. And, of course, this is one of the reasons that there's no interest in that side of things in these demonstrations. We'll get to that in just a minute. The interest of the Democratic Party and the demagogue Obama, the Wall Street puppet Obama, is that this entire thing be kept vague, generic, impotent, and vaguely utopian. Silliness, froth, fluff. As long as you don't have demands, Obama will claim that you're supporting him. There's a publication called Business Insider this week put out an article saying this woman says she went down to Wall Street, she talked to the kids, and they're all for Obama. So if you don't want that to be the last word, you better get out there and refute it. Now, specifically, there is a problem behind the scenes. We got to pay attention to this. Eyewitness reports from experienced observers on the ground indicate there is a covert steering committee of the Occupy Wall Street. It is made up of about 20 people. They are not as young as the other demonstrators. They are between 25 and 45 years old, some of them getting on in years. Some of them are old enough to be the parents of the other demonstrators. They seem to have military backgrounds. Some of them have the typical Marine Corps Army haircut, shaved heads. They seem to have military bearing. And between 4 and 6 p.m. in the evening, they all disappear. They're obviously going to some kind of a secret steering committee meeting. What are they up to? Who do they meet with? These are the people who have imposed this imbecilic straitjacket of consensus. It is a Procrustean bed. It's where if you're too short, they stretch you, and if you're too long, they cut you. The American tradition is, of course, majority rules and the rights of the minority are protected. That served us, on the whole, pretty well. But the consensus model is that a tiny group can block everything. This is why the discussions are so agonizingly long, why so little gets done. I have to point out, the last time that you had a major governing assembly of a large country that operated on the consensus principle was the Polish Diet back in the 18th century. These were oligarchs. This was the landed gentry, petty aristocracy, according to various terms. They used the consensus method, which was called the liberum veto. One veto, one no vote meant nothing could be done. And indeed, if you really got angry, you could explode the Diet, send everybody home until next year. That is a form of oligarchy. There's also the question, where does this doctrine come from? They spend forever discussing whether they're going to buy sleeping bags or knit or sew the sleeping bags. That's a tremendous opportunity for Limbaugh to have a field day. Limbaugh says that they're a parade of human debris on the basis of that discussion. Well, if you don't want that to happen, then don't put on such a spectacle. Of course, that whole debate was tinged with Malthusianism and zero growth. Working families haven't got time for this kind of agonized discussion. They have these discussions, but the really important decisions seem to be made elsewhere. Now, the origins of the consensus model seem to be a group of Spanish students, at least alleged students, showed up during July and August during the steering committee process that led to what you see now. And they said, oh, look, we're the Indignados of Madrid. We're cool. You should have our consensus model. Now, of course, the Indignados of Madrid, sorry for Madrid, but they are the biggest failures in this entire panorama. If we compare the Indignados to Tunisia and Egypt, they're complete failures. They couldn't even topple the IMF agent and austerity enforcer Zapatero. They got absolutely nowhere. They don't compare favorably even to Iceland. Iceland, on the whole, did better, went on longer, had a better impact. And Greece, right? There you've got the workers in the field, and on the whole, even though they haven't accomplished anything much, they're on the whole a better, more militant movement. The Indignados stand as a monument of international impotence and failure. And precisely, the people say, this is what we have to imitate. Now, the theoretician of this, as we learned on Olbermann, I guess, this week, Peter Gelderloos, Gelderloos. Now, this is an American anarchist, very obscure, totally unknown, arrested in Spain in 2007. His book is called Consensus, and this is where we get this straitjacket or Procrustean bed method. Well, why this? The discussions go on and on, but the real big decisions get made someplace else. For example, we've got this parade of discredited left liberals, the same people who brought you Obama and who are still supporting Obama. I'm talking Michael Moore, Mike Myers, Joseph Stiglitz, the left wing of the IMF. There's apparently an invitation to Noam Chomsky, the great border guard keeping 9/11 truth out of the peace movement, the supporter of the George Bush theory of terrorism. Naomi Klein, Susan Sarandon, Cornel West. I wonder, Cornel West, are you still supporting Obama? Is that compatible? Are you stay down with Wall Street and re-elect Obama? Who gave these people the invitation? The reports are that the General Assembly never debated it. Seems like some big decisions are getting made behind the scenes. So it's time to break the control mechanism. Back in a minute.